Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be doing the newsletter sign up form with success message. So you can head over into frontendmentor.io/challenges and then you can click on this card, and then I've already downloaded the files, the starter files, but you're going to have a download button for you here, and then you can just download them. And then once you download them, then they're going to go into your downloads folder, and you're going to have a zip file that is called newsletter sign up form with success message. And then you can just extract this zip file and it is going to extract into this folder. So I'm going to right click on this folder and then I'm going to say open with code, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code. Once this opens up, you can see that we have the assets, the design folder, and the other files that we're going to need for this particular project. And what I've done on the side is I've created a new NextJs application by saying npx create next app, and I've called my application newsletter-yt. And then for this project, I'm not using TypeScript. We have ESLint and I'm using Tailwind CSS. I also have the source directory and I'm using the new app router, even though we're not really going to get into it in this project. And then I'm using the default import alias. So those are the current settings that I'm running for this project in case you want to follow along. And just in case you have an older version of NextJs which doesn't have the app router. So once that runs, once you let that run, then it's going to create a new folder for you. And the new folder is going to be located in this path. So I'm just going to open up another instance of VS Code into this folder by saying code newsletter-yt. And this is going to open up another instance of VS Code into that folder. And that opens up right here, and then I can close this. So close this, and then I'm going to place this to the left and this to the right so that we can do a bit of copying and pasting. So I'm going to select everything here except the git ignore, and then I'm just going to drag and drop into this folder, into my workspace, and then I'm going to say copy folders, and then I'm going to replace the readme, so just replace. And then inside this git ignore, I'm going to copy everything here and then paste them on the bottom of our git ignore here. And then I'm going to close this, close that, and then make this full screen, and then change this into line 48, and then change this into line 41 and 42. And then we can save that. And once we have done that, then we can go ahead and begin to run our application by saying npm run dev inside our terminal. And then this is going to open up on localhost 3000. So I'm just going to open this up on localhost 3000. And then as it opens up, let me see, we need to have the design file open so that we can see what we have. So this is what we have for the design files. This is the active state. I want to check the desktop design. Okay, this is the desktop design, and it seems to be a container inside the body, which is a dark background color, and then the container has a white background color. And then let's check. So this is the success state, and let me see, this is the hover state for the button, this is the error state, and then this is the mobile version. Okay, so we're going to be playing around with CSS quite a bit, because the mobile version, the container takes up the entire space, but on desktop it needs to be in the middle. Okay, that we're going to do quite a bit of playing around with CSS. So obviously the first thing that we need to do is we need to build the mobile version first, because it's going to be easier to scale it up. And once you open this on localhost 3000, this is the default application that you're going to have if you're running dark mode. And if you have light mode enabled, then you're going to get the light mode version, but I don't want to get into that because it is not a tutorial on Next.js. So the first thing I want to do is inside my source folder and inside the app folder, I'm going to go into my global CSS, and then I'm going to remove everything after line 4. So just remove all that. And then on the body, we are going to specify, wait a minute, what? Let me check something. What do we have on the style guide? What is our font? Our font is Roboto. Let's see. Dark slate gray, charcoal gray. Okay. This is what we're going to do. Let's remove this for now, and then let's just save this file as it is. And then inside our layout, we're going to change the title for our application because we don't want this to happen. And you can see that this breaks our application immediately. So we want to say the title is going to be front end mentor, and then the name of the project is newsletter sign up form with success message. And then the description is just going to be the same as this. So let me just copy and paste it here. And then that is going to change the title of our application. And then the cool thing with NextJS version 13 is that you can actually import Google Fonts directly in your application rather than having to use the import rule in your CSS. So what we're going to do here is, we know we're going to be using the Roboto font, so we can just import Roboto here instead of enter. And then here we're going to rename our variable to Roboto, and then change this to our Roboto font, Roboto. And then we want to import, let me see, we want the 400 and 700 font widths. So here you can add in an object or a property, and we're going to call it weights. So weight, or it's weight, not weights. We want the 400, and then we want the 700. And then remember to place your comma so that you don't get that error. And then here we're going to change it into the name of our variable here. So Roboto, change this to Roboto. And then just by doing that, then we will have used the Roboto font instead of the default enter. Now let's go inside our main file, which is the page.js. And page.js is what acts as the entry file for a particular folder that you have. So for example, if you wanted to have another folder called about, then the main file inside your about folder is going to be the page file that is going to act as the entry point. That is something with Next.js that you need to know. I mean, with Next.js, the current version of Next.js that we have. Now inside here, let's just go ahead and return a section with an h1 that says hello world. And then let's see what we have on the screen. So we should see hello world somewhere here. There we go. So now let's begin to build this out. I'm going to open up my dev tools here because I want to have the mobile version here. I'm using the iPhone SE, so the 375 width. And what this is something, never mind about this. So let's begin to build this out. We need this to be open so that we can actually see it. So we have the image, we have an image here, and then the text, and then I think these are also images, and then a sign up form. So that's easy enough to build. We're going to build out the UI first, and then we're going to handle our functionality later. So let's go ahead and do this. We have imported image from image. I mean, this comes default, so you don't need to add the same. But what we're going to do here is we need the image component. The source for this is going to be an image that we're going to import. And then this needs to have an alt attribute. So I'm going to say newsletter. I'm just going to call it newsletter. And then this needs to have a height attribute as well, which is a number. So the height for this, we're going to give it a height of about 250. We're going to adjust it as necessary. And then the width for this is going to be, let me say, 768. And I've chosen 768 purposefully because when you check out your assets, we have the mobile version and the desktop version. So the way I'm going to do it is, for the mobile version, I'm going to use it for tablets all the way up to small mobile phones. And then the desktop version is going to start applying from tablets going upwards up to desktops. And so what we're going to do, how we're going to do that really is we're going to be using CSS just to display the correct image for every device with. And so currently here, what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to import our mobile image. So let's say import mobile from, and this needs to come out from here. So you know what, let's just grab this assets folder and then drag and drop it inside the source folder. So inside the source folder, so that now inside the source folder, we have the app folder as well as the assets folder. So here, this is going to come from /assets / oh wait, is that the correct path? We're going to find out in a moment. So let's say /assets /images and then /illustration - sign up mobile.svg. And then let's save it. Let's see whether this image appears here. It doesn't appear, so this should be /source and then assets. Is that correct? Is that correct? Okay, there we go. There we go. So there goes the image. And let me try out something. Let's do this. Let me say at assets. Does that work? Yeah, that works. So it's easier to use this one than having to go into every folder that you have. Let's go back into our mobile version, and we have our image here. And then once we have the image, we need this other section. But remember that on desktop screens, look at how it looks. On desktop, this is one section, and then this image is another section. So how we need to structure it for our mobile is we need to grab this image, place it inside a div, for example, and then inside another div, we're going to place in all the other text that you have, so the text as well as the form, so that when we get to display them side by side, we're going to go inside the section which is going to act as the parent, and the parent is going to be is going to have the child of this first div and then this second div. So inside here, we're going to have an h1 that is going to say what, stay updated. And then below this h1, we're going to have a paragraph that says this. So let me just go inside our index.html here, and then let's just copy. So copy this, copy and paste it here. And then below this paragraph, we have 3 list items with this icon. So below this, let's create a UL with 3 list items. And then all these list items have images. I'm going to remove this second tag, and then I'm going to add a / here because I think it's much easier. And then I want to add multiple cursors because this image is going to be the same thing. So I'm going to click here and then hold down my Alt key and click this one and this one. And then the source for this folder, sorry, the source for this image, what am I saying, is going to be an image that we're going to import called checkmark. We're going to call it checkmark. And then the height for this is going to be about, let's just say 20. So height is going to be about 20. And the width for this is going to be 20 as well. And then the alt attribute is just going to say checkmark. There we go. And then let's go ahead and import it. So let's just copy this down and change this to checkmark. And then this is going to be called icon list. So let's import icon list here. So icon-list.svg. And then once we have that, then below this image, we have a form. And this form has the label and then the input and then the submit button. So below this UL, but still within the div, we're going to have a form with no action. And then this form, we're going to have a label. The label for this is going to be for the email. And then we're going to say email address as the title for the label. And then below this, we're going to have an input with a type of email, with a name of email, and then an ID of email so that it links to the label. And then the placeholder is going to say email@company.com. So email@company.com. And then we can set it to required to perform a bit of HTML5 validation. And then because of how the browser handles this input of required, I want to have an autocomplete here set to off because I don't want to accidentally leak all the emails that I have saved on my browser. And then below this input, so let's go below this input, we're going to have a button with a type of submit. And then this button is going to say subscribe to monthly newsletter. So subscribe to monthly newsletter. And then once we have that, then let's go ahead and add in the text for these images. So let's go back inside our index.html. Let's copy this first one, copy and paste it here, and then copy the second one, copy and paste it here, and then the third one here. Oops, copy and paste it here. Is that correct? Where's our design? There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and save our app, and then let's see what we have on the screen when we should have some text appearing. There we go. So this is the default style that we have, and then now we can begin to style out everything. You can see the image is already okay, so we don't need to do much on that. Let me close this and place this to the side. Place it to the side. and then grab this and place it to the left so that we can style it side by side and we can see what is happening. So let's go and begin. Inside this first div, let's give it a class name of padding all around of 8 to push everything inwards. And actually, let me see something. The padding on top here looks to be more than on the left and on the right. So let's do this. Let's say padding on the Y, meaning padding on the top and bottom of 8, and then padding on the X of 4. And then let's go inside the H1, give it a class name of text-slate-900, and then let's say font-bold with text of 4XL-4XL, and then we're going to say that for large screens we're going to change the text to 5XL, just make it a bit bigger, and then give it a margin bottom of 8 to push away from the paragraph. There we go. And then for this paragraph, and actually, you know what, let me style out all the paragraphs inside here, and I'm going to say add apply and add text of slate-700, and then let me style out the paragraph as well as the list items so that we can do it once. And you know what, the list items, yeah, that should be it. And then back inside the page, what we're going to do is inside this second paragraph, we're going to give it a class name of margin with the bottom of 8 to push away from the list items right here. And then that is that. And then inside the list items, we're going to give it a class name of flex, which is going to make it break. There we go. And then we're going to change it to flex column, which is going to take it back to its original form. And the reason why I've added flex here is because I want to add a gap of 4 to push away from everything, to push away the list items from one another. And then inside the first list item, I'm going to give it a class name of flex, so that the image and the text can go in one line right there. And then I'm going to give them a gap of 4 to separate out the image from the text just a bit. There we go. And then let me check something here. Items is set to start, so the image is not to the center of the text, but it is to the start. So we can set here the items to start, and then we're just going to, oh sorry, that's not the correct place. Let's remove this, cut it out and paste it here. And then we're just going to copy these class names on the list item and paste it on the second list item and on the third list item, and that is going to save it, and it's going to restructure just a bit, and there we go. And then we can go inside this list item once again and give it a margin at the bottom of 8 to push away from the form. There we go. And then inside the form, we can now begin to style out the label. So I'll give this a class name of block, and then change the font, so text slate to 900, and then change the font weight to bold, so font-bold, and then reduce the text to small, make it much smaller. And then let's give it a margin bottom of 2 to push away from the input just a bit. And then for the input, let's give it a class name here, and the class name is going to say width of full with a border, and then we're going to give it a rounded border of large. Let's see, save it, let's see what happens. Okay, so it goes full width, and then give it a padding on the Y of, let's say 3, and a padding on the X of 4. What happens? That looks okay, that looks okay. And then let's give it a margin on the bottom of 4 to push away from the bottom, and there we go. And then for the bottom, we're going to give it a class name, and I'm going to say bg blue dash what. Actually, what color is this? What color is this? That we should have that color somewhere. Where's our style guide here? Let me see. Gray, dark slate gray, charcoal gray. Really, why do they name these colors like this? Come on. Okay, let's test this out. Let's see what color this is. Instead of CSS, let's say color and then paste this. What color is this? No, that is not the correct one. That is not the correct one. Can't even speak. Copy this and replace it here. Is that the correct one? No. Dark slate gray. Copy this. Is this the correct one? Dark slate gray. Okay, so for that, what we're going to do is we're just going to use the tailwind classes, and we're going to say bg. Let me check how slate 800 looks like first. How does that look? Nope, that looks horrible. Let's change it to blue, and no, indigo. indigo. No. Okay, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's add in the style here. Why didn't I even think of this? Add in the background color and then paste in our style here so that we can remove this from here and the correct color should apply on the button. Wait, that is still not the correct color. Is that? No, those two colors don't look alike. I mean, what? Okay. These two colors don't look alike. Okay, let's do this. Let's first style up the button to look a bit better. So padding Y of 2, let's give it a padding Y of, let's use 3 because we used 3 on the input. And then padding X of 4 and then change the width to full. And then let me see, we're going to change the text to white and then font dash bold. Okay, and then when you hover over the button, it has a gradient. If you remember, it has a gradient when you hover over this button. So we're going to do this. On hover, we're going to change the background color to a gradient. So BG gradient, and we're going to make it go to the right. And then on hover, we want to say go from pink dash 500. And then on hover, once again, hover, we want to go to orange dash 400. Let's see. There we go. There we go. So I just chose those colors at random because they look alike to this, and it seems to work. Right. And then let's go ahead and add a rounded border. So rounded dash slash on the button. So it looks just a bit better. There we go. Looking fantastic. Now for our email here, I don't want this outline. I don't want the outline here on the input. So outline, I'm going to set it to none. But on focus, I want this border to have a border color of slate dash maybe 700 on focus. So when you click on this and you focus on it, then the color changes to slate. Look at that. That looks nice. Okay. Now that we have that, then all we need to do is scale this up for larger screens. Now what we're going to do is this. I'm going to go ahead inside our parent section. Remember our parent section here? And what we're going to do is I'm going to give it a class name, and I'm going to give it a, let me say that for medium screens, I'm going to give it a width of 500 pixels. And this is something that you can do in Tailwind CSS. And if I'm not wrong, it is called just-in-time compiling. If I'm not wrong, I can't remember it well, but you can do this. You can use custom, what is it called? Custom values inside the CSS properties, inside your classes. So a width of 500 pixels. Let me see what happens first of all. That should shrink it down. You can see it now shrinks it down massively. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to cut this out. Cut out the entire section and place it inside a div. And then inside this div, we're going to give this div a class name of bgslate-900, which should now take up this part. There we go. So bgslate 900, and now you can see we have an issue because we did not give the section a background color. So right here, we're going to say bg white on the section so that this goes back to its original style. But on mobile, what you're going to see is right around here, nothing happens, right? But when you begin to scale it up, that's when the issue begins to arise when you go to about medium screens right here. So once you reach here on medium screens, that's when we want our container to go to the middle. Now what we're going to do therefore is this. So width of 500, and then we're going to go here and we're going to say this. Actually, this should also apply on medium screens. And then we're going to say that for medium screens, once again, display this as a flex box because we want this container to go to the middle. And then for medium screens, we're going to say item with the center. And then for medium screens, we're going to say justify center. And then for medium screens, we're going to give it a height of screen, which is 100 viewport heights, which is going to bring it here. Once it reloads, it's going to bring it there. Okay. Now all you need to do is just restructure this so that the text comes here and then this image comes here. Now what we're going to do is we want this div to disappear because this div shows the mobile image. So what we're going to do is for medium screens, we're going to display it as hidden. So display none on it, and now it disappears. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy this div and paste it here. And then for medium screens, this second div is going to be displayed as a block element, but by default, it is going to be hidden. And then now this one is going to show the desktop image, which we're going to import right away. So copy this downwards, change this to desktop. So desktop, and then change this to sign up desktop as well, so that when you save it, then the desktop image is going to show up here and break a bit. And there we go. So we have the desktop image. You can see that now our application breaks, but we're going to fix that in a moment. Now what we need to do is inside this section, because remember this section houses this div, and this third div, but this one doesn't display on medium screens. So what you can do is we're going to say that for medium screens, then display this section as a grid, and then for medium screens, then have two grid columns, which is going to bring this first one here and this one here. And it does the complete opposite. Now the reason why it does the complete opposite is because the text comes second after the image. So what we can do is we can change this up to use flexbox, and then we can say that for medium screens, then the flex row should be reverse, which means it's going to bring this text here, and then the image is going to come here. And then I just realized that we need to increase this. So let's increase this to 700 because medium screens is 768 pixels, as you can see here. And this extension is called Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, in case you're wondering. So save it, and this should increase, and right there. Doesn't look all that nice, but that is because the image takes up more width than this one. So what you can do is inside this first div, and not the first one, but inside this div that shows the desktop image, we can say that for medium screens, let the flex be 1, so that it takes up 50%. And there we go. But it breaks a bit. So we're going to do the same thing on this div. So here we're going to say for medium screens, change the flex to 1 as well, so that it takes up 50% correctly. And there we go. Now what we need to do is we need this image to come down just a bit. So right here, we're going to say that for medium screens, then items dash center, which is going to bring everything downwards just a bit. And we're going to have that. And then once you have that, then on this BG of white, we want on medium screens to have a rounded of large, so that we have a border radius all around. There we go. That's too small. Let's say 2XL. I think that is much better. And then on medium screens, we need this text to push inwards. So we're going to say this. We're going to say that for this section on medium screens, then add a padding on the x-axis of, actually not a padding on the x-axis, a padding all around of 8, which should push everything inwards. There we go. But now it messes up on the top and bottom. Where did I have a padding on the top? And I think it's this one. Then let me change this to padding on the x, so that it just pushes this inwards. Yeah, let's use padding on the x. And then now what we're going to do is on large screens, I want to increase this width because it's looking a bit squeezed for me. So large screens, let's increase the width to 900 pixels. How does that look? And that looks okay, but now we just realized that we messed up, right? So we need this to not be on the x-axis, but we need it to be all round, so that this pushes inwards as well. There we go. That is looking much better. And then let's increase this gap that we have here. So for the gap, we added the gap somewhere. Where did we add it? Where is the gap? I thought it was here. Wait, what is this gap even? Wait a moment. Wait just a minute. Does this have a gap? No, it doesn't have a gap. This is just padding. This is padding that we added on this section on the div. So that should go here. And we're going to say, actually, that's not correct. It should be on this section. Here, we're going to say that for medium screens, add a gap of 8, which is going to increase this gap just a bit. There we go. That is much better. Now that this is much better, what we need to do now is what? Let me see. We need to create our success state, right? we need to create our success state, and then we also need to add form validation for this form. Now for the form validation, I think I should do that first. What we're going to do is we're going to use a package called Formik. So you can open up your command line once again, and then we're going to say npm install Formik. And then how we use it is right on top, we're going to say import use Formik from Formik. And then we're going to do the following. I'm going to open up my cheat sheet because I can't remember how to use this. So let me go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and create a function here from Formik. So we're going to call the function validate, and we're going to be validating some values, or really just one value, which is our email input. And then in case we get errors, then we're going to say const errors is equal to an object, and we're going to be creating these errors. And we're going to say that if there are no values, dot email in the email that we're going to assign this to, if there is no text inside our input, really that is basically what this means, then we want to return an error, and we're going to say errors dot email is equal to, what is the error message that we should have? Let me check. Where's the error message? It says valid email required. So the email message is going to say valid email required. And then we're going to say else if, and inside here we're going to pass in a regular expression, which is going to test whether the email entered actually matches the format of an email. Now I don't like regex, so what I've done is I have a tab open here which contains a regex expression. So I'm going to copy this part. So copy and paste it here. You can pause the video to copy this part, or you can go in the repository. I mean, it's going to be linked in the description, so that you can just grab this line. And then we're going to say that we are testing this expression against the email that is entered inside the input. So that's why you pass in here values.email. And then we're going to say that if this comes out as true, meaning it has failed this regex expression, we are going to say errors dot email is equal to, is going to be valid email required. Once again, required. Once again, the same error that we have inside here. And then once we have that, then below the input, we're going to return the errors so that we can display the errors once the validation occurs. Now below this, we're going to create a variable called Formik, and this is going to be equal to use Formik, meaning our hook that comes from the Formik package, and use Formik, and this is going to be an object, and inside here we can get the initial values, meaning the initial values of the inputs that we have. And in this case, we only have one input, which is the email, and the initial value is just an empty string. Now once we have that, once that validates, then we want to call the validate function, which we have just created above, meaning validate and check whether the email or the text inside the email passes these tests. Now once we call the validate function, then we need to pass in the onSubmit as well. And for the onSubmit, so onSubmit, we want to pass in the values that we have. And then for the values, for now I'm just going to say console log, and we're going to say form submitted successfully, and then we can close this out, and then we can save it. Now we actually need to use our Formik here. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go inside the input, and then now we can remove this attribute of required because we're already doing validation from Formik. So inside the input, what we need to do is we need to change it into a controlled input so that Formik can actually work on it. So the way we do that is by adding a value here, and the value for this is going to be Formik.values.email, because that is the value for the email that we have. And then on change, we need to have an on change handler, and we're going to say Formik.handle change. And this is possible because of all this, because we're using use Formik, which is the hook that gives us access to this. Now, once we have that, then we actually need to have an on submit event on the form. So on the form, we're going to say on submit, and we're going to say Formik dot handle submit. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the button, but on the button here, where is it? Here, I'm going to do it first. On the button, we're going to have an on click event and not on submit, where I'm going to say Formik dot handle submit. And then I'm going to save that, and then we can test it out. So right inside here, it says add the create contacts only works in, oh, you know what? NextJs uses server rendering by default, and Formik uses client rendering. So what we need to do is just say use client on top. That's what this error is saying. And once it reloads, then our application should go back to normal. And there we go. Now let's test it out. Let's open up our terminal. And let's do this. Let's go ahead and type in an email. So example@company.com, and there we go. So form submitted successfully, which means Formik is working as it should. Now what we need to do is we need to display an error state. So for example, if I try to submit this without filling it in, then we need to display the error state right here. And so the way we do that is we are going to go inside our form. So inside our form, we're going to do a bit of restructuring. And so I'm going to cut out the label, and then I'm going to place it inside an article. And then below the label, I'm going to do a check where I'm going to check if formik.errors.email is true, meaning if there is an error in our input. So if this is true, then I want to return a paragraph that says formik.errors.email, which means it's going to render this, so valid email required. Okay. And then if it is false, meaning if there's no error, then I just want to render null, meaning don't render the paragraph. And then I want to style out this paragraph, so give this a class name of text small and text rows 500, and then font, is it bold font? Where is it? Yeah, I think it's bold font. So font bold. And then let's see. Let's test it. Okay, there we go. You can see that it already appears, right? So if I try to submit it, look at that, valid email required. But if I type something in, and let me say gmail.com, you can see that it disappears because our validation is working. So gmail.com. Now all we need to do is just bring this here, and the way to do that is just by going inside this article, give this a class name of flex and item center, and justify between, which is going to bring it here. There we go. Looking fantastic. Looking nice. Now when we have the error here, the class names, or rather the input, it also has like a red background color, you can see. So let's do that, and the way we do that is just by going inside these class names. We are going to do this. We're going to cut this out, and then we're going to turn curly brackets and then backticks, and then we're going to paste in our classes. And then after that, we're going to conduct a check here, and we're going to say that if formik.errors.email, and then what do we need? formik.errors.email. When this is true, only when this is true, that's when we want the BG to be red, no, rows dash 100, and then we want the border to be rows dash 400. Will that work? Let's save it. Let's see what happens. Does this change? There we go. Would you look at that? And you know what, we also want that when we focus on this, when it has an error state, we don't want this slate border. So let's say that on focus, then the border should be slate dash 400, not slate rows. What am I doing? Wait a minute, what class there here? focus. Okay, yeah, there we go, looking fantastic. And that is going to be for this part. Now all we need to do is add our success state. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a new component here. So a new file that I'm just going to call success.js, and then inside here I'm going to say RFC, and then it's just going to change this to capital. Remember to change this to capital, and then this is going to say success, and then inside our page we want to import success on top. So let's go ahead and say import success from success, and then below, should I go below the div? What is this div? The div has a BG of slit and it is flex. So let me go below the div. So below the div, I'm going to render my success component, and it should appear somewhere here or here. Where do you go? It has appeared somewhere. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Here it is. There we go. Now what we need to do is this. We need that when we submit the form, it triggers the success state. The way we do that is by adding a state value here. So I'm going to create a state value here called success and set success, and this is going to be equal to useState, and by default it's going to be false because I don't want the success state to be visible by default. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then I'm going to check and say that only when success is true, that's when I want to render my success component. Now this is going to work technically correctly, but it's going to be an issue. So useState is not defined. Let's import this. There we go, and that should fix it. Reload. Now look at that. Now our success state, this one no longer shows on the bottom left like it was, right? And that is because of this. I've set it to false, but if I change it to true, then it comes back. Our success state now shows up, but this still remains. We don't want this to be here. The way we do that, therefore, is we're going to cut out this entire div, the entire div, and then we're going to say that when success is false, and only when that is true, that's when we want to render the rest of the div. So we're going to save that, and now success should now appear here. Okay, and then I'm going to leave it to be true by default because I want to be able to style out the success state, and we're going to start with the mobile version, obviously. And then inside that success state, what we're going to do is the following. We want to import our image. We want to import this checkmark image, so import it here. We can remove the React import, and then inside here what we need to do is I'm going to turn a div and then a section, and then inside this section we're going to do this. Let me check for the mobile. So we need this icon on top and then this text and da. So we're going to do this. We're going to return an image component, import it from NextJs. You know what, rather than doing this, let me just copy the image that we have here because we imported this image, so it's this one. So copy and paste it here, and then we need to import the checkmark. The checkmark is here, there. Okay, so we need the image, so the image shows up here, and then we need the text that says thanks for subscribing. So the text here is going to be an H2 that says thanks for subscribing, and then below this H2 we're going to have a paragraph that says some text. Let me check if we have the text in the index HTML, and it should say this one. So there we go. So copy and paste it inside this paragraph, and then below this paragraph we're going to have a button, and this button is going to say dismiss message. And let's just copy the button that we had in our submit form. So copy this button, copy and paste it here, and then we can remove the on click. We don't need it, and we can also remove the type of submit. And then let's see, we need this to say dismiss message. So dismiss message, and save it, and then let's see what we have on the screen, and we have that. Nice. Now let's begin to style it out. So inside this section, give this a class name of bg white, and then let's give it a padding on the top of 10, and then a padding on the x-axis of 4 because we used 4 in the other section, and then let's give it a padding on the bottom of 8. Okay, and then let's change this image. Now it's no longer going to be 20, it's going to be, let's say, 80, and then change the height or the width here to 80 as well, make it bigger, and then let's give it a class name and say margin bottom of 8 to push away from the H1. And this is something that you can do on the image component. Technically in React, you can't really style components the way you've done it here, but I am not really sure why this works. I don't understand the logic behind it, but I tested it out and it works. And then for the H2 is going to have the same classes as the H1, and the H1 is, where are you? Here. So copy the styles for this H1 and paste it on the H2. And then for the paragraph, we're going to give it a margin bottom of 8 to push away just a bit from this dismiss message. And then let me go ahead and do this. Let's say that for large screens, the padding on the top, you know what, this can remain. Let's change this to 20 because I want to add up more padding here. Yeah, there we go. Now what we need to do is we need this button to come on the bottom. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to grab the image, the H2 and the paragraph, cut them out and place them inside a div, not a directory, a div. And then we're going to go inside the section and display it as a flexbox, so that when you say justify between, it's going to check the first element, which is going to be the div, and then the second element, which is going to be the button, and then it's going to place them end to end. So let's go ahead and do that. We can do it here. So let's say flex, which is going to make it break, and then change it to flex column, which is going to take it back to normal. And then we're going to say justify between, which is going to bring the button on the bottom. And what? That did not work as I expected. Flex column. Oh, you know what? It needs to have a height of screen, which is going to bring it here. There we go. There we go. So height of screen is 100 viewport heights, meaning it's going to take up 100 viewport heights depending on the width that you currently have. So if I shrink it down, you can see that the button is always going to remain on the bottom. And then when the space is no longer enough, then this happens. Okay, that's nice. So this is the thank you screen for the mobile version. Now we just need to create it for the desktop version. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go inside this, you know what, just at the end of this, we're going to say that for medium screens, the height is going to be auto because we no longer want it to be 100 viewport heights. And then we're going to go and say for medium screens, then the width is going to be 500 pixels. And then for medium screens, we're going to say rounded dash 2XL. Let's save it. What do we have? Okay, we have that. And then for this div, let's go ahead and give this div a class name of bg slate 900, and we should see it here. Okay. And then we can display this as a flexbox of flex and item center and justify center. And then we're going to change this to H screen so that it takes up 100 viewport heights, and this comes to the center. So item center flex, item center justify center. Okay, there we go. For some reason it remained on the left for a while, so I thought I had messed up something. Now this is the thank you screen. Let's see how it looks for this one. So thanks for subscribing, and we should reduce the width of this and increase the padding. The padding is massively increased. Wait a minute, this has a box shadow. The buttons have a box shadow. Okay, that is going to be fixed in a moment. Let's reduce let's reduce both of this to 60, so that it's just a bit smaller, and then reduce this. I think it's a bit big, or not. We just need to increase the padding. So we're going to go here and say that for medium screens, that the padding all around is going to be 12. Make it insanely big. There we go. And remember that we added padding on the top of 20 here. It overrides this part here, overrides the padding top of 20 because it is a media query, right? So that's why we no longer have the padding on top of 20 here. And this looks nice. Now remember that this needs to be dynamic depending on the email that you type in. So we need to make it dynamic as well. So what we're going to do is right here, we're going to cut this out and place it to be inside a span because I want it to be bold. I mean, I can do that by just changing it to strong, I mean. And then here we want to get the email that of the person, the email that they have typed in. And then now we're going to get this as props, so we can destruct it on top here as props. So destructure the email. Now this is not going to work yet because dismiss message does nothing. What we need to do therefore is, remember we created a state value called success. What we need to do is we need to destructure set success here, and then we need to add an on click event on the button. So on click, and I'm going to pass in my inline function and say set success back to false, meaning when I set it to false, then it's going to show the original thingy that we had. So we get one error here because I've forgotten to pass in success as a prop. So what we need to do is inside our page, we need to go ahead and pass set success here into the set success function, so that now when I click on dismiss message, we should be able to see this. Okay, now it doesn't really work all that well yet. We're going to fix it. Now if I click on subscribe to monthly newsletter, you can see that our validation works. What we need to do therefore is, when the user successfully types in email here and they click on this one, instead of just giving a console log as we have been doing here, what we need to do is we need to trigger the success state. So the way we do that is by going inside our function, and our function right here inside the console log, right below this we can say set success into true, meaning by default is going to be false. I've set it to true only because I was telling it, but we can now change it to false. By default it is false, but when the user successfully submits the form, then we want to trigger the success state to be true, meaning it's going to now not show this, but it's going to show the success state. So let's save it and then let's try it out. We can go ahead and say this, so just a dummy email, and then when I click on this, we should see the success state. Now there's a final problem. Look at this, an email confirmation has been sent to nothing. What we need to do is we need to get this email, which is tied to the input, which is tied to this input by saying formik.values.email, and then we need to pass it inside here. So remember that we destructured email on top here. I've called it the prop email. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that for the email prop, I'm going to set it equal to formik.values.email, meaning our prop here, which we are destructuring in our success component, is going to be equal to whatever the user types in. So save it, and then if it reloads, I think it should show. There we go. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? And then we can say dismiss message, which is going to bring you back to the original page, and you can type in another email, so Gmail, and then when you submit it, then you have that. Would you look at that? Looking nice. I think that is the entire functionality of this, and we can successfully submit it. So let me go into GitHub and let me go into my profile, and then let me open up Netlify because I'm going to submit it to Netlify. So Netlify, and then let's see, we can close this, and we can close this as well. We can shut this down. Okay, let's close all of these files, Fantastic. Now let's go ahead and let me see, let's create a new repository, and the repository, I'm going to call it, what is it called? Newsletter sign up form -yt. So create repository. Okay, and then let's copy this link so that we can actually push our items. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me say git add designs and say git, wait, what did not match design, or it's called design, not design, and say git commit, and I'm going to say design files, and then git add, let me say dot git ignore, and git commit, and I'm going to say this is the git ignore, and then git add index.html and git commit index.html template, and then git add package, so both of them, so git add package star, and then git commit, and I'm going to say install Formik, and then git add readme, so both of them, and I'm going to say git commit -m, and I'm going to call them readme, and then git add style guide.md, and the text is going to say git commit style guide. And then let's go inside the source folder, so cd into the source folder, and then git add assets, and then git commit, and they're called assets, and then git add app. Let me see. Yeah, let's just, okay, you know what, let's cd into the app because it has many changes. So git add globals.css and git commit, I'm going to say global css file or styles, and then git add layout.js, git commit, and I'm going to say we update metadata and fonts and font, and then git add page.js and git commit, and I'm going to say landing page, and then git add success.js, and I'm going to say git commit success component, and then finally we can say git remote add origin, and then paste in that link, and then git push -u origin main, which is going to push it to GitHub, and then as it pushes, then let's say add a new site from an existing project from GitHub, and then this is called newsletter. So newsletter, as it is searching, then this should have pushed, and we should be able to see it here. There we go. Okay, so newsletter sign up form, this is the repository, and we can go ahead and just say deploy site, and then as it is deploying, we can also change the site name. So deploying, so site settings, change site name, let me change it to TsbSankara, let's say newsletter sign up form. Will it fit for me? Okay, 3 more letters, there we go. So newsletter sign up form, and then obviously we have nothing here because it's still deploying. Let's just copy this, and then let's go ahead into front-end mentor, and then let's submit. Where is it? Oh, here. And then let's go ahead and say submit solution. So the site URL is this one, and then the repository URL is this one, so here, and then I'm going to say mobile first newsletter sign up form with success message in NextJs, 1 character remaining. Nice. And then we can go ahead, and now we actually need to wait for this to finish, otherwise this is going to get an error, I think. So let me check deploys. Is it deploying? It's still building, so let's wait a moment for it to finish building. So there we go, it has finished, and then now we can check out our site. Where is it? Where's the link? Really? Okay, there we go. There we go. So we have that. Would you look at that? Looking nice. So now let's go ahead and submit our solution. So submit solution, and we should be able to see it in a few moments. Let's just wait a moment because patience is a virtue. And then, okay, would you look at that? Let's take a look at this, and then let's go ahead and say this is the solution, this is the design. Oh wait, we used a darker color. We used a darker color, but it's still okay. It's still okay because we got quite a bit close to the design, and I'm happy about it. I am quite happy about it. So yeah, that is going to be the end of the video. This has been a nice project. We have implemented some bits of functionality here and there, and I have really enjoyed doing it. So if you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like on the video because it helps greatly, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.